Good morning students, here we go with the cerebrum part 2. So in the development of cerebrum, that will be our part 2. We go through enormous points, there are so many points. First points will be the pallium, definition of pallium. What is pallium, what is pallial tissue? Second point will be, we will consider archipallium, and this archipallium is also known as hippocampus. So oblique hippocampus. Third point will be, we will consider paleopallium. This paleopallium is also known as the piriform area, piriform lobe or piriform area. It can be pronounced as piriform, piriform. Then the fourth will also be known as neopallium. That is the neo part of the cortical tissue. Then on this side, point number 5, we come across to differentiation of cortical tissue. So differentiation of cortical tissue. Differentiation of cortical tissue. 6, we come across to development of commissures. Very important, commissures of the entire cerebral hemisphere. 7, we come across to, once again very important points, post-natal growth of the cerebral hemisphere, as well as one of the important parts, myelination. Myelination, post-natal growth as well as myelination in point number 7. Then we come to 8, the last, congenital anomalies. Congenital anomalies of the developing brain. These are the 8 points we are going to discuss in sequence as the growth progresses. So therefore, considering the first point, pallium. Now first point, please come on this side. Yesterday we had seen the development of the C-shaped choroid fissure along with choroid plexus, along with the lateral ventricle. All these structures were C-shaped. Now, excluding that C-shaped structures of choroid fissure, even corpus striatum, that is choroid nucleus, those were considered in part 1 of the development of cerebrum. Now what happens in sequence will be, the remaining part of the tissue, cortical tissue, will be known as the pallium. That remaining part of cortical tissue will differentiate, it will become thickened to form the pallium, that is called pallial tissue, that is the definition. So beyond that C-shaped structures of corpus striatum as well as the lateral ventricle as well as the choroid fissure and choroid plexus, now it is turned for the remaining part of the tissue of the cerebral hemisphere to thicken and differentiate, which will be known as the pallium or pallial tissue. That is the definition. Now here, this pallium will consist of 3 different, we know the 3 different layers, ependymal, mental and marginal. We have seen this during the differentiation of the histogenesis of neural tube, which I have discussed with you in the initial phase when we started the development of nervous system. Same way, this 3 pattern of cells in the pallial tissue, in the pallium, will differentiate in such a way that ependymal cells and the mental cells will migrate. Where will they migrate? Towards the outer marginal zone. So ependymal and mental cells will migrate towards the marginal zone. As they migrate towards the marginal zone, they will differentiate and they will develop. What they will develop into? Basically 3 different structures of cerebral hemisphere. And what are those 3 different structures which we have written? Those 3 different structures will be, first there will be development of archipallium, or it is called hippocampus. And this will be starting exactly in 7th week of intrauterine life, 7th week. Second, there will be development of paleopallium, which is also, as we have written in these points, it is also known as the piriform area, where the olfactory tract is connected to the cerebral hemisphere, that area. And the third structure to develop will be neopallium. In the neopallium, there will be differentiation and development of various sulci and gyri. So in this way, the entire pallium, the cells of the pallium or pallial tissue will differentiate and develop into these three different major parts of the cerebral hemisphere. So therefore, these three parts as they develop, they are known as the rudiments of the cerebral hemisphere. These three parts are known as the rudiments of cerebral hemisphere. Now here we finish our first point, that is the pallium. Now we come to the second point, that is archipallium. Now we have to discuss in detail how this archipallium and hippocampus develop. So once again, when we come on this side, I'll utilize this this portion of the board. So here in archipallium, what we need to draw will be, the first structure that we have to draw is nothing but the entire cerebral lobe. This is how we have to draw the entire cerebral lobe. So here what we'll do is we can extend this till here, and this is where we draw this cerebral lobe, the outline of cerebral lobe. It should be as big as possible because we have to accommodate so many structures inside. Going to accommodate so many structures inside. So that is why I am drawing it in a huge size. Now here, the first structure that we'll draw is what we have finished in part 1. That will be, we will draw, the first structure will be the ventricle, which we have already finished the development in part 1 of the cerebral hemisphere, lateral ventricle. Now, in the lateral ventricle, here at the base we are going to draw, we are going to show them with the, once again, this will be the entire caudate nucleus, corpus striatum. So this is what we are going to show. And here, this we will show it with various different colors, so it will be easy to identify. And here I will use this as, let me take orange color to show this corpus striatum. So here, this is where I will show this corpus striatum, and we know the amygdaloid nucleus also. This we have completed in part 1 of the cerebral hemisphere, and now we are going to show the choroid plexus, that is the choroid fissure. So therefore, here we are going to show that there will be development of, which this also we have finished, choroid fissure and choroid plexus. This also we have finished in the part 1 of the cerebral hemisphere. So if we mark them, this is the lateral ventricle, of course the lateral ventricle. Then here we can mark this structure as the corpus striatum. So we have made the base basically, and this structure we can mark it as the choroid. This one will be the choroid fissure. So with this base we are going to now draw the remaining structures. So we start with archipallium or hippocampus. The hippocampus will develop in the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere. Exactly, it will develop just rostral to lamina terminalis. That means first we have to make the lamina terminalis, and that lamina terminalis here, we show the lamina terminalis at approximately this level. This is where we show the lamina terminalis. So therefore, rostral to lamina terminalis, there will be development of the collection of the pallial tissue in the medial surface of cerebral hemisphere, which will later on develop into hippocampus. And so now the hippocampus will develop, I will use blue color here. This hippocampus will start its development in this way, rostral to the lamina terminalis, rostral to lamina terminalis. So therefore here we need to mark this as lamina terminalis, rostral to it. Then this hippocampus will grow, this tissue, archipallium, will grow in such a way that anteriorly it will pass in front, which will be known at this point as the pre-terminal area, and from here it will pass into the piriform area. And in the piriform area, once it passes, it will join with the olfactory nerve. The fibers of olfactory nerve joining with cerebral cortex. That area, piriform area, it will merge. That is the development of hippocampus. That is the hippocampal tissue. So here it will pass here and it will merge with the, this is the olfactory bulb and olfactory tract. So olfactory tract is joining with the cerebral cortex. That area is piriform area, and therefore here this archipedium is merging here with the piriform area anteriorly. From here, this entire tissue, archipedial tissue, hippocampal tissue will pass just dorsally and above. It will pass dorsally and above over the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere, medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere. It will take a turn around outside the choroid fissure. It will take a turn outside the choroid fissure. So as it is passing, it will then pass from here, it will pass into the inferomedial surface of the temporal lobe, inferomedial surface of the temporal lobe, like this. It will curve. So it will curve around the outer part of the choroid fissure, it will pass in the inferomedial surface of the temporal lobe, and then it will end. Where does it end? In the floor of the inferior horn of lateral ventricle. So therefore, it is going to end in the floor of the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle, and the point where it ends, it will be known as the hippocampus. It will end in the form of a bulging in the floor of the inferior horn of lateral ventricle. So therefore, this entire structure that has developed here, which we have drawn, is known as the archipedium or hippocampus. Still more structures in hippocampus. At this point, there will be migration of the cells of the mental layer in the hippocampus. So these cells will be collected in the hippocampus. Cells of the mental layer will be collected in marginal layer of hippocampus, and therefore it will form a crenated margin which will be known as dentate gyrus. So this will lead to development of dentate gyrus, like this, dentate gyrus. Therefore, hippocampus, dentate gyrus, these are parts of the archipedial tissue, archipedium. So therefore, from this, now there will be development of various nerve fibers. Some of the nerve fibers will pass from, they will develop from this hippocampus and dentate gyrus. And those nerve fibers which will develop will be fimbria and fornix. How they will develop? Again, they will develop in such a way that they will take a round turn, where outside the choroid fissure, just as hippocampus was developed. But here they will pass within the concavity of hippocampus and just outside the choroid fissure, and it will pass anteriorly till the level of lamina terminalis, where they will pass dorsal to lamina terminalis. So that fimbria and fornix we have to draw. So therefore, as we draw the fimbria and fornix, I will take the help of yellow color. Here, this will be the fimbria, as well as it will continue as the fornix, and then it will pass in the dorsal part of the lamina terminalis. It will follow the curvature of the choroid fissure, outside choroid fissure. And remember, this development of fimbria and fornix, they are nothing but the development of the nerve fibers of the hippocampus and dentate gyrus. So therefore, once they pass here, they are going to pass in the dorsal part of lamina terminalis, and what will happen from here, they will join the mammillary body of the hypothalamus. So they are connected directly with the mammillary body of the hypothalamus. This is where we show the connection of the fornix or termination of the fornix through the dorsal wall of lamina terminalis into the mammillary body of hypothalamus. This is the entire nerve fiber tract of the hippocampus, and dentate gyrus. So here we need to mark this structure. So therefore here we are going to mark this as hippocampus, the first structure. Then we are going to mark this structure as the dentate gyrus. We need to mark all of them. Then we are going to mark this structure as the fimbria, and continuation of this fimbria we are going to mark it as the fornix. These are the structures which we have to mark in this way. And therefore, as the fornix has terminated where? In the mammillary body. What will happen will be, there will be passage of some of the fibers of fornix which will cross with each other. So there will be a crossing of fibers from right to left. Since this is of one side, similar structure will develop on the opposite side, right side. If this is of left side, similar structure will develop on the right side. So therefore some fibers of this fimbria and fornix will cross with each other, which is known as the hippocampal commissure. And at the same time, now here there will be development of one very important structure at the same time. Now this important structure will develop approximately at the 10th week, which we are going to come later on. And in that 10th week of development, the structure that will start its development is corpus callosum, the largest commissural fiber of the entire cerebral hemisphere. And that corpus callosum, we will show it here, green color I am using. Exactly, it will start at this level and it will start just at the dorsum of lamina terminalis. See here, the exact word is dorsum of lamina terminalis, corpus callosum will start. And then this corpus callosum, as it migrates above and posteriorly, as it migrates above and posteriorly, it will travel rostral to the fornix. The word used here is rostral to the fornix. And it will travel posteriorly and backwards. So here we show up till here, this is the corpus callosum. We are going to take this point in later half. So we will just draw this corpus callosum at this point, because we have to show this corpus callosum at this point, because this corpus callosum development will affect the hippocampus. How does it affect? The entire hippocampus, as it has developed, there will be corpus callosum which has started its development in the 10th week from dorsal to the lamina terminalis, and then it will migrate upwards, backwards, rostral to fornix. Therefore, the entire hippocampus, the fibers of hippocampus which are present just above the corpus callosum or rostral to corpus callosum will slowly degenerate. They will develop into important structure which we have seen in the gross neuroanatomy, and therefore that important structure will be known as indusium griseum, as well as the longitudinal medial and lateral longitudinal bodies. So therefore these longitudinal, medial and lateral longitudinal bodies or medial and lateral longitudinal stria, they will develop along with indusium griseum. What are those structures? They are the vestigial remnants of hippocampus. And this hippocampus vestigial remnants are present rostral to the corpus callosum. Because of the growth of corpus callosum backwards, these fibers of hippocampus will become vestigial in structure. So therefore, this much which we have developed is nothing but the entire archipedium or the hippocampal formation. So here we have discussed the entire hippocampal formation or archipedium of the cerebral cortex. And here we need to mention and mark this structure as olfactory nerve, or better is olfactory tract. The word used here is olfactory tract. So this much is about, and here, yes, we are going to mark this as corpus callosum. So here we finish our entire archipedium. Now we come to point number 3, periopedium piriform area. We have discussed archipedium and hippocampus. Now periopedium piriform area. In periopedium, we just need to write 2 important points. The entire tissue which lies just outside corpus striatum. Remember corpus striatum development in part 1 of cerebral hemisphere. So the entire tissue of the pallium which lies outside corpus striatum will now differentiate into piriform area. And exactly what structures will develop from paleopallium? This paleopallium will develop into uncus and parahippocampal gyrus. Please note down, uncus and parahippocampal gyrus will develop in paleopallium. We have seen uncus, we have seen parahippocampal gyrus during the demonstration of the sulci and gyri of inferior surface of the temporal lobe, which I have discussed with you. So the same uncus and parahippocampal gyrus which we have seen during the demonstration, the same, these two structures will develop in paleopallium. And where are these structures lying? These structures are lying on the inferior surface of temporal lobe, just above the hippocampus. And these structures are lying just superficial to corpus striatum. So these two structures are involved in paleopallium, and they will connect the olfactory tracts. Remember, they are going to connect the olfactory tracts. Or rather, olfactory tracts are going to terminate in this area. So olfactory tracts of both sides, right and left, they are going to terminate in uncus and parahippocampal gyrus as olfactory areas. So therefore, this area is known as piriform area. Here we finish the development of the third point. Now we take the fourth point. Very important, fourth point. Now in fourth point, please try and understand. After development of archipallium and after development of paleopallium, remember one thing, archipallium develops first, hippocampus, second to develop will be paleopallium, and now it's time, it's turn for the neopallium to develop. What is neopallium? The entire cerebral tissue outside the archipallium and paleopallium will differentiate into neopallium. And this neopallial tissue will differentiate in such a way that there will be development of the first sulcus in the entire brain. And that sulcus to develop will be, we will write down here only, same way, the first sulcus to develop will be lateral sulcus. Please note down. This also I have discussed with you in the demonstration of sulci and gyri. So in the lateral sulcus, it will develop at around which time period? The time period to develop this sulcus will be 4th month of intrauterine life. So in the 4th month of intrauterine life, the lateral sulcus will develop. As the first sulcus develops, lateral sulcus, there will be growth of the frontal part of the cerebral cortex, parietal part of cerebral cortex, and temporal part of cerebral cortex, and they become folded. These folds will be known as opercular folds or opercula. So frontal opercula, parietal opercula, temporal opercula will close the lateral sulcus in such a way that there will be submerged part of the gyrus or cortex within the lateral sulcus. And that is why when we lift those opercula and when we go deep inside the lateral sulcus, which we have seen, there will be presence of that area, and that area is called insula. So insula develops in such a way that it is the submerged portion within the lateral sulcus, within the floor, which is covered by the opercular margins of frontal, parietal and temporal lobes. This is how insula develops. And now, since in 4th month lateral sulcus has developed, opercula has developed, insula which has developed, in the 6th month, the remaining sulci, parieto-occipital sulcus, then central sulcus, then calcarine sulcus, and then cingulate sulcus will develop. This is very important. Please note down. So therefore, in which time frame? In 6th month. Here I am writing with small letters. I hope you are able to see it in the small letters. So in 6th month, here the remaining sulci will develop. I have mentioned the names: parieto-occipital, cingulate, calcarine and the central sulcus. Then what will happen? These sulci will develop in such a way that now the 2/3 part of the cortex will be submerged in the sulci and only 1/3 part of the cortex will be visible on the gyri. So note down this important point. 2/3 part of the cortex is submerged within the sulci of the human brain and only 1/3 part of the cortex is visible on the gyrus. So therefore here we finish our point number 4, that is neopallium. Point number 4 is over. Now we go to point number 5. Now in this point number 5, this is the differentiation of cortical tissue. Again, you have to note down various points, very important points. This will help you in histology also. What is differentiation of cortical tissue? In the differentiation of cortical tissue, there will be histogenesis. Histogenesis has commenced already, which I have discussed with you in the beginning lectures, histogenesis of neural tubes. So in the histogenesis we have seen ideally there are 3 layers: ependymal layer, mental layer, marginal layer. Now what will happen? Ependymal layer and mental layer will undergo transformation, proliferation, differentiation in such a way that they will further develop into the various cells, and these cells will accumulate in the marginal layer of the developing cerebral hemisphere to develop into various layers. So therefore now our point is the mental cell layer will differentiate, will proliferate and migrate in the marginal cell layer to develop into 3 layers present in archipallium and paleopallium. 3 layers. So in archipallium and paleopallium, here I am going to write, I will just take this box here because all these structures on the blackboard are important, so I am not going to rub any of the structures. We will utilize each and every inch of this blackboard. So therefore now there will be development of 3 basic layers in archipallium and paleopallium. So therefore I will write here archipallium as well as paleopallium. So therefore what are those 3 layers which will differentiate? That is differentiation of cortical tissue, that is migration of the mental cell layer, which is called differentiation of cortical tissue in the marginal layer, and in archipallium and paleopallium they are molecular layer. Number 2, there will be the external granular layer, and number 3, there will be the inner main layer, pyramidal cell layer. These are the only 3 layers which will develop in hippocampus, that is archipallium as well as paleopallium. Molecular cell layer, granular cell layer, pyramidal cell layer. Now what will happen? After the development in archipallium and paleopallium, once I rub this, there will be similar migration of the mental layers, mental cells in the marginal layer of neopallium. So therefore, in the neopallium, now these same mental cell layers will migrate, proliferate and differentiate into not 3 but 6 different layers. And those 6 different layers you need to write down. The first layer will be molecular layer, second layer will be external granular layer, third layer will be the pyramidal layer, fourth layer will be the inner granular layer, fifth layer will be the ganglionic layer, and sixth layer will be the polymorphous layer. These are the layers which will develop in the neopallium. Remember. So once again, molecular layer, external granular layer, pyramidal layer, internal granular layer, ganglionic layer and polymorphic layer. And with this we finish our point number 5. Now we come to point number 6. Now in point number 6, commissures. All different part of commissures we have to develop. 3 commissures we have to discuss here. The 3 starting, the main commissures which will develop, and these 3 commissures will develop in 3rd month, remember. So starting of 3rd month, the first commissure to develop will be anterior commissure, the first commissure. So here I will rub this box so that I can utilize the same space for the commissures. So therefore, the first to develop will be anterior commissure. Please note down. So the first structure to develop will be, once again I'll renew this box so I can utilize this box entirely. The first will be anterior commissure. And this anterior commissure, please note down, will develop in the ventral wall of lamina terminalis, and therefore it will develop at, I will write down the time period, 3rd month. In the beginning of 3rd month it will develop, the first commissure. Where does it develop? In the ventral wall of the lamina terminalis. What are commissural fibers? We know they connect the right and left areas of the same cerebral hemisphere, not same but opposite cerebral hemispheres, but the areas will remain the same. So right and left sides of the cerebral hemispheres, the areas which are connected, they are called commissural fibers. So anterior commissural fibers developing in the beginning of the 3rd month in the ventral wall of the lamina terminalis will connect the two olfactory tracts. So here I am going to make the commissure, and that commissure I am going to show with the help of violet color on this side. This side, if we want to show lamina terminalis, and here I will show with a small structure. Please draw this structure in this way, and we can name this as the anterior commissure. So therefore, here we are going to mark this as the anterior commissure in the ventral wall of the lamina terminalis. It is going to connect the olfactory tracts of right and left side. Second commissure to develop. This is the first. Now second to develop. We are going in sequence. So second to develop. Now all the 3 commissures are going to develop within the lamina terminalis only. Please note down. They are going to develop within lamina terminalis. So second commissure to develop will be the commissure of the fornix. Please note down. Commissures of the fornix. What will they do? We know the fornices, the fornix, that is of right and left side, plural, they are called fornices. As the fornix is coming, passing through the dorsal wall of the lamina terminalis, and they are then terminating in the mammillary bodies of the hypothalamus. So here they will cross from right to left side. The fornix of right side and left side, then they will form commissure of the fornix. Where? Exactly in the dorsal part of the lamina terminalis. So once again, with the help of violet color, we are going to draw this structure where in the dorsal part of lamina terminalis. So this will represent the commissure of the fornix. What will they do? They will have commissural fibers that will connect right and left parts of the entire hippocampus. So the entire hippocampus is connected on the right and left cerebral hemisphere through the commissure of the fornix, which is passing dorsal part of the lamina terminalis, which is passing through the dorsal part of lamina terminalis, and also it will contain projection fibers. These fornix are basically projection fibers. They will contain projection fibers from hippocampus till hypothalamus. Starting point was hippocampus and termination was hypothalamus. So it will contain projection fibers also. Third commissure to develop. Now the third commissure to develop here will be the biggest commissural fibers, corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. Here we need to write certain points of corpus callosum as we have already developed here. Corpus callosum will start its development in 10th week. So please note down, corpus callosum will start its development in the 10th week. This is when it will develop. Second point, this corpus callosum will develop dorsal to lamina terminalis. Third point, it will then progress rostral to the fornix. Fourth point, this corpus callosum initially will pass anteriorly and then it will pass upwards, backwards. And fifth point, therefore this corpus callosum further will divide into 4 different segments, which we have seen in the gross anatomy. They will divide, or they will differentiate into the 4 basic segments that are rostrum, genu, body and splenium. Once again, rostrum, genu, body and splenium. These are the 4 major gross anatomical structures of corpus callosum, which you can note down. They will develop at this time. And because of this growth of corpus callosum, now what will happen? I have already discussed this point. The superficial part of the hippocampus will degenerate. The fibers which are present dorsal to corpus callosum, they will degenerate. And what will happen? They will form the indusium tracheum, vestigial component. Now this corpus callosum, what will it do? Since it is the biggest commissural fibers, it will connect the areas of neopallial cortex on either side. Right and left cerebral hemispheres, the neopallial tissues are connected through the entire corpus callosum. So therefore, this is how corpus callosum will develop. And therefore here we finish our commissures. So here we finish our point number 6, the commissures of the development of the cerebral hemisphere. Point number 7, postnatal growth and myelination. In the postnatal growth, please note down, this is very much, this point can be asked in MCQs and Viva also, one more question answer. At the time of birth, total volume of the brain will be 1/4 of the adult volume of the brain. So at the time of birth, the fetal brain at the time of birth will have 1/4 of the volume of the adult brain. Second very important point. During the first year after birth, the enormous brain will increase in size and develop in such a way that it will develop to up till 3/4 of the adult volume. So up till 3/4 of adult volume, the entire brain will develop during the first year after life. And then what will happen? From first year after life till 17th to 18th year of the life, brain will grow, develop slowly, it will increase till adult volume. So the adult volume of the brain is reached only at the age of 17 to 18. And remember, this increase in size, volume of the brain is not because of multiplication number of the cells, but it is because of the increase in size of the cells in the tissue as well as the blood vessels. Now we come to very important point regarding myelination. Now in myelination, once again, we will utilize this box here. So I am going to once again rub this box and then I am going to utilize for myelination. So therefore, here we are going to write about myelination. Here once again we will redraw this box here, and in the myelination, the myelin sheath, we know that in central nervous system will be deposited by which cells? Oligodendrocytes, and in peripheral nervous system by Schwann cells. But we are in the central nervous system, so therefore this myelination will commence at 6th month. Please note down this very important point. Myelination will commence at 6th month of intrauterine life. Often asked in MCQs and in Viva or in one mark question answer. Which are the fibers which are myelinated first? Motor fibers are myelinated first, and later on there will be myelination of sensory fibers. I have written motor fibers first, then sensory fibers. Now the tracts. Which are the tracts first to be myelinated? The tracts which are first to be myelinated, very important question, very important, they are medial longitudinal bundle. So medial longitudinal bundle is the first tract to be myelinated. This is also asked in MCQ. Which is the first tract to be myelinated? Now, second tract to be myelinated, just immediately after medial longitudinal bundle will be, this is also very important, they are vestibulospinal, then there will be tectospinal, and there will be reticulospinal tracts. Vestibulospinal, tectospinal and reticulospinal tracts are next to be myelinated. This takes place around 6th month. Now we come to 8th month. In the 8th month of period, which are the tracts which will be myelinated? The tracts which are to be myelinated will be spinothalamic tracts, and there will be spinocerebellar tracts which are myelinated. And then we come to the end of 8th month or beginning of 9th month. That is just before birth. Remember, just before birth, pyramidal tracts will start their myelination. Pyramidal tracts. And these myelination of pyramidal tracts will continue till 2nd or 3rd year after birth. This is also asked so many times in MCQs. So pyramidal tract will start just before birth and it will continue at 2nd or 3rd year of life after birth. Here we finish our point number 7 regarding postnatal growth and myelination. Then we come to the last point, congenital anomalies of the brain. These congenital anomalies are very interesting if you understand. Once again, I will utilize this box. I want this box, so we will utilize, I will rub this and we will take the help of this box and I will rub on this side also. So therefore, first congenital anomaly, anencephaly. Please note down. The first congenital anomaly will be our anencephaly. So here I write down the first one, anencephaly. What is anencephaly? What will happen? There will be brain tissue which will be lying exposed to the exterior. That is because of non-closure of anterior neuropore. Remember one thing, once again I'll repeat, non-closure of anterior neuropore will lead to the brain tissue which is lying exposed at the time of birth, and this brain tissue will be degenerated. And what will happen here? The fetus will have bulging eyes, and this fetus will often be accompanied by loss of swallowing reflex, as a result of which the fetus will be accompanied with hydramnios. These are the features of anencephaly because of non-closure of the entire anterior neuropore. Anencephaly. It is accompanied by loss of swallowing reflex and it is accompanied by hydramnios. Now, second congenital anomaly will be the hydrocephalus. Please note down this hydrocephalus. Second congenital anomaly. What is hydrocephalus? Increase in collection of CSF within the entire brain, and therefore that may be because of the non-absorption of CSF or because of there is a barrier in communications. These are the causes, and because of these causes, the entire hydrocephalus is divided into two varieties, and those two varieties will be communicating hydrocephalus and non-communicating hydrocephalus. So what is hydrocephalus? Basically increase in the CSF fluid within the brain, as a result of which there will be dilatation of the various ventricles, the cavities of the brain. Now in case of the non-communicating hydrocephalus, what will happen will be, there may be blockage in either interventricular foramen of Monro, or there may be blockage in the cerebral aqueduct, or there may be blockage in the roof of the fourth ventricle through foramen of Magendie or foramen of Luschka, as a result of which these ventricles will remain dilated. So these are the causes of the non-communicating hydrocephalus. Here we finish our anomaly number 2. So first was anencephaly, second is hydrocephalus. Third anomaly we come down to the microcephaly. Please note down, microcephaly. What is microcephaly? In microcephaly, the cranial cavity itself will be small and the development of the brain will be of very, very small in nature. Microcephaly, very small brain. So therefore this is microcephaly. Then we come across to point number 4. This is one of the most important congenital anomalies, and it is known as meningocele. Meningocele, yes, we have discussed this meningocele in vertebral column, axial skeleton nerve. This is the meningocele developing in the region of brain. Basic concept will remain the same, but the site is different. So what is meningocele of the brain? Very important. See, during the development of the skull bones, which also I have discussed with you, portion of the occipital skull bone, that is squamous portion of the skull bone, just above the highest nuchal line, which is also known as interparietal part of occipital bone. So this squamous portion of occipital bone above highest nuchal line will not develop. There will be a gap in that portion. Through that gap, if the meninges are protruding outside, through that gap, if the meninges will be herniating outside, protruding outside at the time of birth, that case will be known as meningocele of the brain. Now we come to point number 5. It is related to meningocele only. Point number 5 will be related to meningocele only. This will be known as meningoencephalocele. Meningoencephalocele. Same anomaly. Along with meninges, if there is herniation of the brain tissue also, some amount of brain tissue is also present here through this gap, it is called meningoencephalocele. Point number 6 is also related to that, and that is known as meningohydroencephalocele. What is meningohydroencephalocele? Sometimes these questions are asked in 1-mark question answers, remember, or in MCQs. Along with meninges and brain tissue, if portion of ventricle is also herniated outside, then those cases will be known as meningohydroencephalocele. And the last point will be here, In the last point, there will be the association of these congenital anomalies with that of the various syndromes. So in which all syndromes there is direct association or linkage of these anomalies. For example, Down syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome. These two syndromes will be accompanied by mental idiocy. So somewhere these syndromes are related with the congenital anomalies of the cerebral hemisphere. With this, we finish the development of cerebral hemisphere and the entire development of central nervous system. Thank you very much.